So in our last class, we discussed the query operation end-to-end part 1. So let me just slightly revise what exactly we have done in our last class. So we implemented our first CRUD queue operation, which is query operation in the backend in the DPC extension class. So we went to the corresponding method, that is employee set underscore get underscore entity set, and we have written the select query, select star from the table, and to send the data to the front end, we kept that particular data into the returning data parameter. The returning data parameter was et underscore entity set. So let me just go to the runtime artifacts, DPC extension class. All right, so if you come down, totally down, right, so employee set underscore get underscore entity set. So this method we have redefined and written the logic select star from this table, which gives all the records, but these records has to go to the front end. So for that, we are going to keep the records into the returning data parameter, which is et underscore entity set. Every method will contain a returning data parameter if required. So if at all you want to send the data to the front end, so you need to find out which is returning data parameter and keep the result in that returning data parameter. Okay, right. And after that, we have seen how to call that method from our OData service URL. So this is a metadata document, by the way. So always open the metadata document in one tab, and then the exact OData service to hit to get all the employee data is employee set / employee set. So this URL is giving all the data for us. Now this URL we have called from the browser, but we need to call from the SAP UI5 application. So for that, so we have seen 3 steps. Step number 1 is to create the destination in BTP. So we have done that. And we also added the OData service in our business application studio. So how to add the OData service? To add the OData service, you need to right click on the manifest.json and use Open Service Manager option. So when you go there, there is an option add service through which you can add the OData service. So these 2 steps we have finished. Now coming to the third step, so very important step. The third step is to create a OData model. Okay, OData model is an object actually. So what this object will do, the OData model object always points to the OData service URL. It always points to this OData service URL. That means it points to this URL. So remember, this URL is called OData service URL, base OData service URL. So what is the difference between this URL and this URL? This URL contains an additional entity set, the name of the entity set, which will bring only employee data. So remember, in any of the OData service URL, in addition to the base OData service URL, you will have something extra. So this extra part is called URI convention, URI notation. In one of my previous class, I already mentioned, basing on what exactly you want to call, basing on which method exactly you want to call. So basing on that, so this part will change. But whereas this part is fixed. So the fixed part of the OData service URL is called as the base OData service URL. And this part, which will always change basing on whether you want to do create operation, whether you want to do update operation, whether you want to do read operation or update operation. So query operation. So basing on what exactly you want to perform, so this part will change. And this is called URI notation, convention, anything you can call it as. Okay. Now, so this OData model object, so this OData model object will always point to the base OData service URL. That means it is going to point to this one. And this is base OData service URL only. Okay. By pointing to this OData service URL, the OData model object also have a capacity to hit the URL to the backend and get whatever the data or push the data, whatever. Okay. So basically it can hit the backend and perform all the thread queue operations. Or I can say it will hit the backend and call the thread queue operation methods. Thread queue methods in the backend. Now, even a layman to understand, I will explain what is this OData model object. So why this object is required first of all. So pay attention. If you have any URL, okay. So for example, I have facebook.com. Facebook.com. Now this is the URL of facebook.com, right? If I just keep this URL in the browser, will the request automatically trigger to the backend, to that server? No. See, now I typed facebook.com. Is the facebook.com login page is coming? No, it is not coming. Now can anybody tell me what is the next thing I need to do to get the login page of facebook.com? So typing facebook.com is not enough, correct? In addition to typing, after the typing, what we need to do? We need to hit the enter key. Will you agree with me or not? So this is OData service URL. So let's say I copied the OData service URL and pasted. So having the URL in the URL bar, will it trigger to the backend? No, it won't trigger to the backend. To trigger to the backend or any server as a end user, what you need to do? You need to hit the enter key. You need to hit the enter key. Until unless you hit the enter key, this URL is not going to trigger. This URL is not going to trigger. So how are you triggering the URL? You are triggering the URL by clicking the enter key, right? The moment you enter, the moment you click the enter key, then only the URL is triggering, right? So here my point is, having your OData service URL here at line number 20 is not enough. There should be someone to trigger it. There should be someone to trigger it. Is it not? So here I have the URL. But when I have the URL, is it triggering automatically on its own? No. You are triggering by clicking the enter key. I clearly shown you without clicking the enter key. Is it triggering to the backend? No. Does not matter. You wait for 100 hours also. It is not triggering to the backend. So similarly, you have your OData service URL here at line number 20. But who will trigger this URL to the backend? There should be someone to trigger this URL to the backend and get the corresponding thread queue methods executed. And that someone is nothing but your OData model object. The OData model object can point to the OData service URL, not only the base service URL, it can also point to the extra part, that is URI convention, and it can hit, what it can do? It can hit to the backend and get your one of your thread queue operation methods executed. Okay, so this particular third point we need to do. Now creating OData model object, once upon a time it is developer's step actually. Developer step means developer need to do creation of this OData model object. But after the introduction of this business application studio, this OData model object is created automatically along with the step number 2 itself. So if you are performed the step number 2, then it indicates that step number 3 is already done. So OData model object is already created. Okay, right. So now let me take you to the models part of this manifest.json. When you add the service, what happens is this part is added in the sap.app section. Data sources part is added. This is OData service and this is the URL. In addition to this part, at the bottom, there is a models section. Under the models section, line number 72 to the line number 82. So this is also added. And what is this? This is a way of creating OData model object through configuration. So OData model object, once upon a time, maybe in the year 2014-15, at that time, OData model object is created through coding. OData model object is created through coding. In the controller, you need to write the coding. But that was in the 2014-15, so at that time. And later on, SAP has made this OData model creation also as a part of the configuration in manifest.json. Okay, so this particular configuration is nothing but OData model object and its default settings. Okay, now here you need to understand the syntax of defining a model. See, this is another model, we call that as resource model. So let me just give you some intro about the different types of models we have in SAP UI5. This is an interview question. So different types of models in SAP UI5. So this is a must and should 100% interview question as well as certification question. 100%, no doubt about it. Okay. So what are the different types of models we have in SAP UI5? The first one, OData model. So this is a very important model. So that's the reason this was on the top. The second one is JSON model. And third one is resource model. Okay. OData model and resource model, these two are automatically created by the framework. Resource model is present from the beginning, and OData model also created by the framework when you add the service. So when you perform the step number 2, the step number 3 also comes by default. Okay, so this is OData model and this is resource model and JSON model. So in tomorrow's class, we are going to talk about the JSON model. So what exactly it is and all. So forget about this in today's class. So the syntax of defining any model in the manifest.json is, it starts with a model name. Every model should be given with some name. You can give any name, no problem. So here, the resource model is used for internationalization. So internationalization means supporting your application with multiple languages. So in our first structure of SAP UI5 application class, I told you inside this I18N we maintain the language translation files. So for English, for German, for Chinese, so for each language one translation file is maintained in this folder. Okay. So basically that is what is this resource model. We have a complete separate class to understand this I18N clearly. So in today's class, I'm not getting into too much into this internationalization since we already have a separate class. So just understand like this is the name of the model. So every model will have some name. Just like I have a name Rizwan, you have some name. So similarly, every model will have a name. Now I18N is the name given for this resource model. Okay, and resource model points to this I18N file. So this file, so you can see the bundle name pointing to this is web app folder dot I18N stands for I18N folder, and again dot means inside I18N dot property file. So it is pointing to this file, and this file contains actual language translation, all the text from above. Okay, right. Now resource model is over. Next one is OData model. Then what is the name for the OData model? Where is the name for the OData model? Generally, for OData model, no name is given. Okay, if you want to give, if you have interest, you can give some name for the OData model as well. But for OData model, generally when you add the service, so whatever the code that gets generated, so in the generated code, no name for the OData model will be given. But however, if you want to give something, yes, you can give some name also. So remember, whatever the number of models you have inside the models section, every model should contain a name. Every model should contain a name. Any one model can be kept empty, means without any name. If you want to keep, yes, you can do that, but only for one model. So you decide whatever the model that you want to keep without any name, that you can decide. So generally OData models will not have any name. Okay, only one OData model. If you are adding one more OData service, one more OData model also gets created, that should have the name. Okay, right. So the reason it is having no name, that you will understand later in today's class itself. It is a convenience actually that you will understand in today's class. And remember, there is only one model that can have without any name. Okay, right. Now the OData model is saying, I'm basically pointing to this particular data source. So this data source is nothing but this B72EMP service, which is a data source, and in turn it is pointing to the base OData service URL. So we already understand that OData model object points to the OData service base URL. Okay, base OData service URL, right? So that is what exactly it is doing here. So this is OData model without any name, and it is pointing to the data source B70 EMP service. Now what is B72 EMP service? So this is nothing but pointing to the base OData service URL. And these are the default settings, you can ignore them. Okay, so these are not needed, so you can just ignore them at this moment, right? Okay. So just to start with, I will give some name for this model. I'm giving the model name as O model, stands for OData model. Okay, so that everybody will be very easily understand by looking at the name. Okay, so normally what happens is in the initial classes, if you do not give the name, you feel little awkward or weird. Okay, and later on, if you give the name, then you feel little awkward. Okay, that you will understand in today's class itself. All right. Now the step number 3 is also over. The creation of the OData model is done. So this is my OData model object. the name of this OData model is O model. I have kept it, and it is pointing to this OData service URL. All right, next, step number 4. Now create a table UI element in SAP UI5 view. Table UI element in the view, and pull the employee data into the table. Okay, so now let's go to the view. I'm going to create a table UI element here. All of you pay attention, guys. So this is a very, very interesting class. So I'm going to write the table. So the table UI element also contains some subparts that you will understand. Just like few UI elements already we have seen, they contain some subparts, right? So for example, if you take bar contains the subparts like content left, content middle, content right, correct? So similarly, we have seen something else also, right, which contains the different subparts like object header. So if you take object header, it contains attributes as a subpart and statuses as a subpart, correct? So similarly, the table UI element also contains some subparts. So let us see what are the subparts of the table. So this is the table UI element first of all. So a rectangular box, it's a table UI element. The table has a first subpart which is called header toolbar. Header toolbar. So this is a subpart. So this subpart comes at the top of the table. So this is called header toolbar. So header toolbar is an area above the table, and this place is utilized for keeping some title. So for keeping some title at the left hand side, like table title, employee list or something, and at the right hand side to keep some buttons, okay, like create employee, delete employee, edit employee. So to keep some buttons, we use this area. So this is just a area name. Header toolbar is a area name. That is why the letter H is small. Just like inside the bar, content left or content right is a area name. But inside the area, you will create a button, right? Getting my point? So similarly, header toolbar is a area name. Now, where is this area? The area is present above the table. Now in this area, you need to create a toolbar. So let's create a toolbar. We have created a toolbar. Okay. Now the toolbar can contain some title. So there is a title UI element. So title text equal to employee list. Now let's have a look at the output window. So we created a table with a title, that's all, with a header toolbar, right? Now you can see this is a table with only a title, employee ID. What is this employee ID? Sorry, employee list. So now you will get employee list here, and there are no columns that we have created it. So table, the subpart is header toolbar. So inside this subpart, I need to keep the toolbar. Okay, so because it's a toolbar area, so I need to keep a toolbar. For example, kitchen. So kitchen is an area name. That's a name given for that area. But inside the kitchen, again you have stove, cylinder, or crockery unit, right? All that stuff. So similarly, this is toolbar where we created a title inside the toolbar. So this is my toolbar. This is my toolbar. For this toolbar, I think you can give some background design, like design equal to solid. So if you give solid, it a little bit gives the solid color. I don't know, we'll see. Yeah, so now you can see this is appearing or highlighting a little bit more than the previous. Previously this is the black color, but now this is a nice solid color. So that is design equal to solid. All right. So my toolbar is over, toolbar area is over. The next area of the table is columns area. So this is the columns area. So maybe I will mark with a rectangle. So this area is called columns area. So you can define any number of columns that you want. So let me first define the subpart. The subpart name is columns. So C small, you can see the letter C small. Small means it's an area name. So this is the area. The blue color one is the area of the columns. Now inside the columns, I'm going to create my first column. So column is again a UI element. Now inside the column, I'm going to give my column text as employee ID. Now copy this. So two columns will create to start with. This is name. Now format the document. Nothing but beautifying the code. All right. This seems fine. Now let us see the columns of the table. What happened? It is not coming. Columns, column, column, column. This is the toolbar, and this is columns of the table. Yeah, that's fine. I don't think there is any problem here. Once again, yeah. So it has loaded little late, but no problem. Right. So employee list is the title, and employee ID is the name of the column, and the second column is employee name. Okay, and there is no data at all. There is no data means no rows. Right. Now the next subpart is the main important subpart, and that is rows. One second. Right. So this is the columns area, by the way. So what is this? This is the columns subpart. Now after the column subpart, the main important area will start, and that is your rows. So this entire thing is the rows area. Now inside my rows area, I will have only rows. I do not have anything else. Row 1, row 2, row 3 and all. Now this entire rows area, this entire red color area is called as items. So you can, so terminology was items, but generally we speak it as rows. So technical name is items. Items is the area name. This entire red color area, this rectangle, the outer rectangle is rows area, but technical name is items. Now inside this particular rows area, you are going to create rows, each row. Okay. So all of you observe here. Now columns area is over. So let me minimize the code. So I minimized the header toolbar, and then I minimized the columns. Okay. So now I am going to the third subpart of the table, which is the rows area. So I'm going to write items. So items means rows. Okay. Now here inside the rows area, what you can create? You can create rows only. Just like in header toolbar, you created toolbar. Just like in columns, you created column of the table. Now you are in the items area, items, I small letter. You can see the letter I started with the small letter, which indicates it's a subpart of the table. Now you are where are you present now? You are present in the rows subpart. Obviously, when you are present inside the rows subpart, what are you going to create? You are going to create the rows of the table. You are going to create the rows of the table. Now let us see how to create the rows of the table. Each row of the table is called as column list item. Each row of the table is called as column list item. COLLUMN, column list item. I'm going to create a column list item here. Column list item. So it automatically gives the suggestion what goes inside. See, the moment I type this, so column list item. Okay. So the moment you type C, it automatically gives the column list item. Okay. Now column list item means a row of the table. Column list item means a row of the table. Now let's say this is the row. Okay. So by the way, we have only 2 columns, right? So let me just remove this. And let me remove this as well. So we have only 2 columns. One is employee ID and second one is employee name. Employee ID and second one is name. So once you created the row, this row is a empty row. So this row does not contain anything. So if you want, you can check out. See, employee ID, name, and this is the row, this first row. And this row does not contain anything. See, there is no value here, there is no value here. So for more precisely, let me copy this and paste one more time. So this is second row. I created one more row, column list item, means another row. Now let us see 2 rows gets created and both are empty. See, row number 1, row number 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 2 rows got created. You can see 1, 2, and both does not contain the data. So how to fill it? Inside the row, first you need to give the value for employee ID and then you need to give the value for employee name. So I'm giving the value for employee ID like this. So as of now, I'm hard coding with 100,001. Okay. Now copy this. This is employee ID, and in the same row, see, here I have given 100,001. But in the same row, there is employee name also. So you need to give here. So let me copy this. I'm going to give employee name as maybe Rizwan as of now. Okay, so in the first row, this entire thing is in the first row. For the first row, I have filled my employee ID, I have filled my employee name. Now let us see. Got it? Employee ID is filled, employee name is filled. Hard coded. As of now, I am hard coding. So why I am hard coding? First, you should understand the concept, how the table works. Once you understand the concept, then we will pull the backend data into this table. So similarly, this is my second row. This is my second row. This is my first row, by the way. Now this is the second row. Again, in the second row, I'm going to keep the 2 values. So 100,002 and the text is let's say Bobby. Okay, so very famous name. Right. Now you will find both the rows and both the rows filled with the data. Okay, so this is how the typical table UI element looks like. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this table little dynamic to pull my backend data into the front end. So what we do here is, instead of defining these rows statically like this, see, if I am going to define the rows like this, column list item, remember guys, column list item means row. Okay. Technical name, column list item. Generic name, row. We also have some names, right? My name is Rizwan, but my mom will not call me Rizwan, right? So nickname they will call. So similarly, column list item is technical name. Row is the generic name. Okay. Now have, this is row number 1 and this is row number 2. Let's say I have 1000 rows. So when I have 1000 rows, do you really think I will type this 1000 times? No. So do you remember in any programming language, if you want to do a same task repetitively, what you will apply? Anybody? So let's say I want to print 1 to 10 numbers. What you will do?
Loop or something.
Looping, exactly, looping. Okay. So here, as of now, you have 2 rows. So you may write this column list item 2 times. If you have 10 rows, you may write this column list item 10 times. But what if you have 10,000 rows in the backend table? Will you write this column list item 10,000 times? No. Here the looping mechanism should come. So now all of you observe, I'm going to remove the second column list item. I will keep only one column list item, but this will be present in a loop. So let us see how the looping mechanism works in SAP UI5, and this is totally different from any technology. No comparison with any other technology. So what we do here is, for the table, the subpart rows is called items. So items means the rows of the table. So I have written it here. Items means the entire, this area. This entire red color area is called rows area. So for this rows area, I'm going to do something called binding. Model arrow mark. Let me complete this first and then I will explain. So model arrow mark / employee set, and then I'm going to do the binding here with employee ID, and I'm going to bind here with the employee name. Now let us see what happens. So I did only 2 changes, and now you will get the backend data into the front end. One second. Model name is mandatory. And next to the model name, yeah. Now all of you observe. So we have 3 employees in our backend database table. They are Anil, Amit, and one more. See, Anil, Amit, Babji. Now the backend data has came into the front end. So how this magic has happened? So this is what you need to understand exactly. So here SAP UI5 follows a very unique approach. You will not find this kind of approach maybe in any other technology. It is a little bit Angular also follows the same process, but other technologies, will not follow this. So this particular process is binding. So here for the items, we have done some expression here. We have kept something within the double quotation, and this is called the binding expression. So let me write it here. So items means a subpart of the table. So nothing but rows is subpart. So wherever I write items, you can also remember these are nothing but rows. Now basically what I am telling to the table, hey Mr. Table, the rows of the table, okay, the rows of the table should get from this particular binding. Now this particular binding, what is this binding actually? The binding evaluated to a OData service URL. The binding converts like a OData service URL, and since it's a OData service URL through OData model, it hits to the backend automatically. Now all of you observe. So when it is running this application, this is converted like this. So my items means my rows of the table are should come from O model. So what is O model? First of all, let me write the syntax of the items binding. So syntax of items binding. So the syntax of items binding is items equal to double quotation, curly braces open and close. That is part of the syntax. Okay. And then model name, arrow mark slash entity set name. So this is the syntax of a items binding. So once again, the items binding starts with a double quotation, ends with a double quotation, with a open curly braces, closing curly braces, and in between your model name, arrow mark, and then slash entity set name. So now if you follow the same syntax, I have written the same here. My model name is O model, which is my OData model. So you can see what is my model name, O model. So same thing I have written. And then my entity set which I have to trigger is employee set. So employee set. So basically this entire thing converts like this URL. So let us see how this convert like this URL. So here O model means OData model. It goes to the manifest.json to check what is O model. So it understands that this O model is pointing to this OData, data source. And it goes to the top to see what is this data source. So this data source is nothing but the OData service base URL. Okay. So till here, till OData model get executed. So till here, now it is replaced. So this entire thing is replaced with the base OData service URL. Okay. So till here it has replaced. Right. It has replaced with the base OData service URL. And after that it is saying to add slash employee set. Right. So employee set is added. Now this entire URL will be hit automatically by the OData model. It will hit to the backend. So once it hits to the backend, what are you getting? You are getting 3 rows. Row number 1, you are getting 3 records values. So this is Amit's data, this is Anil data, and this is Babji data. The moment the items binding is pointing to more than one record data, so more than one record it is pointing to, then the line number 24 starts behaving like a loop. It starts behaving like a loop. So when it starts behaving like a loop, it starts behaving like a loop only when this particular items binding, which evaluated to a URL actually, it converts like a URL, and this URL is pointing to multiple records. So as of now I have multiple records. So the moment items binding pointing to more than one record, then this particular line number 24, which is the items subpart, starts acting like a loop. Now it enters the loop. So when it enters the loop, it is pointing to the first data record. Okay. So it has entered the loop. Now it created column list item. So what is column list item? Column list item means one row of the table is called column list item. Okay. 1 second. So initially there are no rows. This is rows area, by the way. That is rows area, but there are no rows initially. Yeah. So this red color one is the rows area. Now it entered the loop and the column list item get executed. Column list item means what? It's a empty row of the table. So I'm going to create one empty row of the table. So this is my row of the table. Now, after creating the empty row, so I am saying inside the row, keep two things. One is employee ID and the one name. Now, this is called again a binding. So here, this binding points to the current iteration. So what is the current iteration? It is pointing to the first row, right? Out of this result, it is pointing to the first row in the first iteration. So in the first iteration, your result is pointing to EMP ID. So this EMP ID is 100001. So is it not? So you are basically pointing to which field? You are pointing to EMP ID. So which is nothing but this one. And this EMP ID is 100001. So 100001 will be kept here. Okay. And again, you are saying to keep the name. So next is name. Name is Amit. So Amit will be kept here. So row is over. So when the column list item is over, again the ending items tag get executed. When the ending items tag get executed, it again goes to the line number 24. The reason is there are still two more records. There are still two more records. Okay. So again it enters the loop. So when it enters the loop again, now it is pointing to the second record. Okay. So in the second record, first empty record gets created. So this is the empty record. All right. So you can see it has entered the column list item again, which is empty record, and again employee ID and name. So what is the employee ID here? 100002. So 100002 and the name. So what is the name here? Anil. So this one. Okay. So again ending items tag executed. So again it comes to the items tag because there is one more row. So again it enters the loop and so on. So like this, even you have 1000, 10,000, 1 lakh records also, they automatically looped and set in the table as records. Okay. All right. Now this is what is displaying the backend data into the front end in the form of a table. Okay, so we displayed only two columns, but you can display any number of columns. Okay, all right. So the reason why SAP don't give this model name, yeah. So normally whenever the OData model is created, so it was not given any name. Initially, you feel awkward if you do not have the name, but see the convenience now. So let's say I don't have the model name. This empty means having no name is also a model name. Empty itself is a model name. Empty means nothing. So having no name is also a model name. Okay. So if you do not have the model name here, you don't need to give this O model arrow mark because this is the model name. So you don't need to give this, and you don't need to give this one also here. So this is convenience. Now when this items tag get executed, now it checks with the syntax. So what is the syntax? Model name arrow mark. So where is the model name? No model name. So when you have no model name also, it goes to the manifest.json to check, is there any model that is defined without any name? Yes, OData model is there which was defined without any name. Okay, so this empty is also a model name. So this empty, we do not have anything here. So as per the syntax, we should have model name. So do I have any model name here? No. So no model name means which model? OData model. OData model means it points to what? It points to base OData service URL. So till here it will be replaced. And after that /employee set. so it hits to the backend. Okay, so when you are writing the view code, you don't need to give O model everywhere. So here also you need to give O model everywhere. So the advantage is, if you define your OData model without any name in your view, that becomes very convenient. Okay, all right. Now I am going to add one more column. So employee ID, name. So let me add the designation. And since the third column is there, so you also, in each row, you also need to add this designation. So similarly, you can add skill, email ID, blah, blah, blah. So whatever you want. See, 1, 2, 3 columns. Okay, so let us add some 5 columns. Designation, this is skill. Then let me add the salary. Yeah, so these are enough. Skill, salary. And then if you want to add the status of the employee, that also you can do. Status of the employee. So as many columns as you have in each row, column list item means row. So in that row, you also need to give the values for all those columns. Status. All right. So this is what is the table code in SAP UI5, and this is how you need to pull the backend data into the front end. So this is your table. So that's all for today. In tomorrow's class, we are going to understand the second way, that is JSON model. So there is another model, that is JSON model. So what is JSON model, where it is used? So the entire story about the JSON model we are going to understand. So if you have any questions in today's class, you can ask me. So today we have completed the query operation end-to-end part 2. So we have pulled the backend data into the front end successfully. So story has not ended, guys. There are a lot of things we do on the table. There are a lot of UI elements also we create basing on this backend data and this model and binding concept. Okay, so we create drop downs, we create radio buttons, we create multi-combo box, we create a lot of stuff we create, and even on the table, so we do a lot of things. Okay, so we delete the employee in the table, we create a new employee. So all these things we'll do.
One question here, like when we don't have data, right? When we don't have data, like will it give any message, or we need to add manually?
No, it will give the message automatically. So it gives no data.
Oh.
So you might have seen initially, so it was written as no data, something like that. So when there is no data, so the table automatically shows the message no data. Okay. So fine, guys, I will download this code also, give it to you.
Hi, Rizwan. Good morning. After getting data, if we can add any validations here, or SAP side only we need to add validations?
For pulling backend data into the front end, if you want to add any validations, in tomorrow's class you will understand. So that is what is basically the JSON model. So I was talking about JSON model, right? So you will get the answer for this question tomorrow. That is not called as validation, but it can be called as some data formatting, or the way you want to display the data. That is the slight data manipulation kind of thing.
So
Backend, two tables are there. Front end, we want to show in one table.
Yeah, that also we can do. But both the tables, it depends on how both the tables are there. Like, for example, employee.
Like
See,
Is it like a
it
header and
depends on
items? Are you
how
saying?
those tables are related to. For example, if they are one-to-one relation, then we can display. So let's take header and line items. So those two cannot be shown in a single table. So what we do is, when you click on the record, let me show you from this example. If it is 1:1 record, then yes, we can show in the same table. But if it is 1:n relation, then that is not shown in the same table. So did you understand what I said?
yeah, I understand. When come to
Header and
SQL,
line
we call
item,
it
for
as
example, purchase
joins.
order and its line items. So if that is the case, purchase order is one table, line items is another table, but I can't show both of them in a single table. Okay, so here this is employee, this is employee projects. I cannot show employee and their projects in a single table. But let's say each employee has only one project. If that is 1:1 relation, yes, at that time I can show both of them in a single table. Okay, so how to do that you will understand later. So only 1:1 relation data you can show. Okay, so fine then. We'll meet in tomorrow's class with our next topic, that is JSON model. So basically we are going to repeat the same class with another approach.
Yeah, just to add, please also start the debugging part so that it is easy for troubleshooting.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks.
Okay, Ravi. Have a nice day, guys. Bye-bye.